ॐ नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ॐ नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ॐ नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। Hare Krishna. Welcome to Bhagavata Pravaha online course. In this Bhagavata Pravaha, we have been discussing the flow of Srimad Bhagavatam in a very concise form. And so far we covered the first 68 chapters of the 10th canto. And today we will discuss from the 69th chapter till 75th chapter. In these few chapters, we will see how Narada Muni once visited Dwaraka Dham to see how Krishna is conducting his Grihastha life with 16,108 queens. After this, Sukadeva Goswami describes how Krishna along with his family once went to Indraprastha to meet with the Pandavas. And during that period, Yudhishthira Maharaj worshipped Krishna through the Rajasuya sacrifice. And before that, Krishna enabled Bhimasena to kill Jarasandha, and later Krishna released 20,800 kings who were arrested by Jarasandha, and he blessed them. And after that, Krishna attended this Rajasuya sacrifice, and Yudhishthira Maharaj worshipped Krishna with great love and devotion. And during that sacrificial ceremony only, Krishna killed Shishupala. And after this Rajasuya sacrifice, Krishna came back to Dwaraka. So we will see all these things in today's episode. In the 69th chapter of the 10th canto, Sukadeva Goswami describes that Narada Muni once became very curious to see how Krishna is leading his household life with so many queens. Recently, Krishna had killed Narakasur, and Narakasur kidnapped 16,100 princesses. So Krishna released all of them and made these 16,100 girls into his queens. And already Krishna had 8 principal queens. So total Krishna had 16,108 queens. And Narada Muni was very curious to understand how Krishna in one single body is maintaining all these wives simultaneously. So Narada Muni became very eager to understand the greatness of the Supreme Lord Krishna in satisfying so many queens. So Narada Muni once came to Dwaraka, and he entered one palace of Krishna, and that is Rukmani's palace. So, and in this context, Sukadeva Goswami also describes the beautiful city of Dwaraka. So Dwaraka Dham of Krishna is so opulent that it has 900,000 well-furnished palaces which are made of crystal and marble, and they are having so many furnishings that are also made of gold and silver and ivory. So it's a very opulent abode of the Supreme Lord Krishna. And Dwaraka Dham has so many royal palaces and nice pathways and roads, and the traffic is also organized nicely, and the city is filled with beautiful gardens and lakes and very beautiful trees and flowering plants and the birds and so many other opulences. So this entire Dwaraka Dham, being the eternal abode of the Supreme Lord Krishna, is endowed with all divine spiritual opulences. And Narada Muni entered such a divine abode of the Lord to understand his household life. Then Narada Muni entered first the palace of Rukmani Devi. So as soon as Narada Muni entered, Sukadeva Goswami describes the beauty of Rukmani Devi's palace. So Rukmani Devi's palace was having coral pillars and decorated with Vaidurya gems. So all these beautiful palaces of Krishna and all the furniture that he has in his palaces, they were bedecked with gold and very precious gems, jewels. And sapphires were bedecked in the walls, and the floors were glowing with perpetual brilliance, and canopies were hanging with strands of pearls. So in this way, Krishna is living in such great opulence. Krishna is, after all, the husband of the goddess of fortune, and the goddess of fortune is directly his wife and maid servant, and Krishna is very opulently living. So, and there were so many well-dressed maid servants in Rukmini Devi's palace, and there were also very sincere soldiers who were in nice uniforms guarding the palace. So Narada Muni entered there, and everyone welcomed Narada Muni. And as soon as Krishna saw Narada Muni, Krishna welcomed Narada Muni and then washed his feet and made him sit on a very beautiful throne. And Narada Muni was so happy with this beautiful reception given by Krishna. Krishna is, after all, Namo Brahmanya Devaya Go Brahmana Hitaya Cha. Brahmanya Devaya means Krishna is very much appreciative of Brahmanical culture. So he likes people who uphold Brahmanical culture, and he respects and worships Brahmanas personally also. So when Narada Muni, such a great Brahmana, had come to Krishna's palace, so Krishna received him with so much of love and affection. And later Krishna washed Narada Muni's feet and then asked, "My dear Narada Muni, you are such a great sage. What can I do for you? Please order me." So I am a grihastha, and being a householder, I am supposed to be serving renunciants and great sages and brahmanas like you. Please tell me, what am I supposed to do? So then Narada Muni was completely satisfied at heart, and then he told Krishna, "So please favor me so that I will go out and chant your glories. My Lord, I am already satisfied by chanting your glories." So in fact, Narada Muni also came to Dwaraka to understand more and more glories of Krishna and Krishna's potencies and energies. So then Narada Muni spoke a beautiful shloka. He says, "Drishtam tavangri yugalam janatapavargam brahmadibhir hridivirincha magadha bodhaihi samsara kopapatito taranavalam dhyayamscharami anugrahana yathasmriti syat." So Narada Muni did not have any other desire from the Supreme Lord Krishna. So Krishna asked personally, "Narada Muni, what can I do for you?" And Narada Muni says, "I have no other desire. So may I constantly meditate on your lotus feet, and may I perpetually sing your glories, because your lotus feet are meditated upon and worshipped by even great personalities like Lord Brahma." He says, "Drishtam tavangri yugalam janatapavargam." So your two divine lotus feet are visible to me now, and they can provide apavargya, liberation to everyone. And brahmadibhir hridivirincha magada bodhaihi means even Brahma and Shiva and many other great devatas also worship those lotus feet. So virincha vairincha surendra vanditam. So Krishna is worshipped by such great demigods. So Narada Muni offered his respectful obeisances unto Krishna in this way, and then took his leave, and then Narada Muni went to another palace of Krishna. So Narada Muni went to Rukmini Devi's palace. He found Krishna there. Then Narada Muni went to Satyabhama's palace, and he found Krishna there also. And as soon as Narada Muni entered the palace of Satyabhama Devi, so he saw Krishna along with Satyabhama and Uddhava. So they were playing dice game. And as soon as Krishna saw Narada Muni, so Krishna immediately received Narada Muni and said, "Oh, Narada Muni, it's our great fortune that you have come here. Please come and have a seat." And Narada Muni was noticing Krishna. Just now I have seen Krishna in Rukmini's palace. He's there in Satyabhama's palace also. And Krishna is not indicating in any way that he has already seen Narada Muni just now in Rukmini's palace. So Narada Muni was so astonished. And then later Narada Muni simply stood up silently and went to another palace. So there Narada Muni, in this way, he covered many palaces of Krishna's queens. He went to Mitravinda's palace, then Jambavati's palace, Nagnajiti's palace, and Kalindi's palace. There are so many other palaces of Krishna's queens. So at different places, Narada Muni is seeing Krishna doing different things. At one place, Krishna is taking care of his small children. You can see in that picture. So Narada Muni would come to the palace, and Krishna is caring for his small children, like an affectionate father. And then at some other palace, Krishna was going for bath, and in some other palace, Krishna was offering oblations and sacrifices. Some other palace, Krishna is doing his Panchamahayagnas, and sometimes he would feed Brahmanas, and some other palace he was accepting the remnants of Brahmanas. and then he was chanting Gayatri mantra in another palace, and he was practicing sword fighting in another palace, and he was riding on horses in another palace, and in another palace he saw that Narada Muni saw that Krishna was resting on his bed, and in some other palace Narada Muni found Krishna consulting Uddhava on some official subject matters, and then he would have water sports in another palace, and then in this way Krishna is engaged in various activities in different palaces simultaneously. So means 16,108 Krishnas are there in 16,108 palaces to spend time with 16,108 queens. So Krishna can simultaneously present himself in the same form with all these queens. In the Vrindavan pastimes we have seen Krishna expanded himself into unlimited Gopa boys and also calves in different forms. Now in Dwaraka Krishna expands himself into 16,108 Krishnas in similar form. And in Rasalila also Krishna expanded himself into as many number of forms as the number of gopis are there, and he danced with each of them. So these are all different forms of Krishna that simultaneously exist and perform different activities. So sometimes similar activities also. And in some other palace Narada Muni found Krishna listening to Puranas, and sometimes in some other palace Krishna would be joking with his wives, and then he is enjoying family life as per Shastra, and sometimes he would just sit alone and meditate on the Supreme Lord who is himself, and sometimes he would do menial service to the elders, and then in some other place Narada Muni found Krishna taking care of arranging the marriage ceremonies of his children and grandchildren. So we have already seen the marriages of Pradyumna, Krishna's son, and Aniruddha, Krishna's grandson. So Krishna would be taking care of the marriages of sons and grandsons, and sometimes he would be worshipping some devatas, and then later he would be receiving some of his son-in-laws and daughter-in-laws. Sometimes he would be seeing them off also in festivals. So in this way Krishna is simultaneously engaged in many activities in different palaces of his queens. So Narada Muni has seen all these things and he was completely astonished. And by seeing this magnificent display of Yogamaya of the Supreme Lord, Narada Muni became very much appreciative and attracted to Krishna even more. And Narada Muni offered a prayer to the Lord. He says, Vidama Yogamayaste Durdarsha Apimayinam Yogeshwaratman Nirbhutata Bhavatpada Nishevaya. So now we have understood your mystic potencies and opulences, O Krishna, that are very inconceivable, and only by serving your lotus feet I can perceive your power. So it is not easy to understand the Supreme Lord by our intelligence. So Narada Muni went to understand how Krishna is conducting his household life simultaneously with so many queens, and Narada Muni understood to some degree, but Narada Muni's understanding is only because of his inclination to perform bhakti unto Krishna and render service to the lotus feet. If an arrogant person wants to understand Krishna, he cannot understand. So one cannot understand God by challenging spirit or intellectual capabilities or mental speculation. One can understand Krishna only by a sincere inclination to render service to his lotus feet. So Narada Muni offered this prayer, and then he said, my dear Lord, please give me your leave. Now I have seen your magnificent display of your divine opulences, so I'll take your leave, and now I have a big work to do, that is to spread your glories all over the world. I have to glorify you in front of so many people, how you are conducting your household life in front, with so many queens simultaneously. Then Narada Muni is completely satisfied, and then Krishna revealed to Narada Muni, my dear Narada Muni, I am doing all the duties of a householder just to set the right example for common people to follow. It's not necessary that Krishna abides himself with the rules and regulations of Grihastha ashram in this world. So Krishna need not arrange for the marriages of his sons. Krishna need not practice sword fighting. Krishna need not hear Puranas, and Krishna need not do whatever he has been doing in all these palaces as a part of his household life. But he is doing all these things just to set the right example for common people to follow. So, so the Lord is imitating the behavior of common human beings just to set example for all the humanity to follow, and Narada Muni understood this. So Sukadeva Goswami concludes with his Falashruti. He says that anyone who chants, hears and glorifies or appreciates the activities of the Lord Krishna, then, and these activities are not supposed to be imitated, but they are supposed to be followed sincerely. So if one glorifies the Lord or hears or chants about Him, then one will develop devotion unto the Lord. So that's how Sukadeva Goswami concludes this chapter, by glorifying the process of glorification of the Lord. So Krishna is glorious, and the process of glorifying Krishna is so glorious. In the Mukundamala Stotra there is a beautiful shloka that says about Krishna's glories, glories of Krishna Katha. So the shloka says, Vyamoha prashamaushadham munimano vritti pravrityaushadham daityendrartika raushadham tribhuvane sanjeevanaikaushadham bhaktatyantahitaushadham bhavabhaya pradhamsanaikaushadham shreyah praptika raushadham tribhuvane Sri Krishna divyaushadham. In this shloka, the word aushadha comes several times. Vyamoha prashamaushadham. So the glories of Krishna are compared to aushadha. Aushadha means medicine that can cure the material disease. So Vyamoha prashamaushadham, the aushadha of Krishna's glories can completely cure our Vyamoha, means illusion. In this material world, people are subjected to illusion. To come out of that illusion, we have to glorify Krishna. Vyamoha prashamaushadham. Next, Munimano vritti pravrityaushadham. Muni means all thoughtful sages. So the Krishna Katha, or the glories of Krishna, can inspire the munis or thoughtful sages to make their occupation as devotional service. Vritti pravrityaushadham. So vritti means what they are supposed to do. Pravritti means that which that they have to really pursue, that is bhakti yoga ultimately. So Vyamoha prashamaushadham munimano vritti pravrityaushadham daityendrartika raushadham tribhuvane sanjeevanaikaushadham. Daityendra artika raushadham. Daitya means demons. Daityendra means kings of demons. So even the kings of demons are fearful of a devotee who takes shelter of Krishna Katha. Daityendra artika raushadham. Daityendra artikara means this can cause distress to the kings of demons also. Tribhuvane sanjeevanaikaushadham. Tribhuvane means in all the three worlds. Sanjeevani. Sanjeevani means it's a very special herb that can even revive the life of a dead person also. So Hanumanji got the Sanjeevani to revive Lakshman, who fell in the battle with Ravana. So Sanjeevanaikaushadham. So this Krishna Katha will act like Sanjeevani Aushadhi that can actually induce life in all the materialistic people. Sanjeevanaikaushadham. So Vyamoha prashamaushadham munimano vritti pravrityaushadham daityendrartika raushadham tribhuvane sanjeevanaikaushadham bhaktatyantahitaushadham bhavabhaya pradhamsanaikaushadham. Bhakta atyanta hita aushadham. So this aushadha of Krishna's glories can cause the greatest welfare to all bhaktas. Bhakta atyanta hita aushadham. Tribhuvan Bhaktatyanta hitaushadham bhavabhiya pradhamsanaikaushadham. And it can also vanquish all the fears of material existence. Bhavabhaya. So Shreyaha praptikaraushadham. So this can, Krishna Katha can cause the ultimate auspiciousness for the entire humanity. Shreyaha praptikara aushadham. Pibamanaha Sri Krishna divyaushadham. Pibamanaha, oh mind, drink this aushadha, drink this medicine of Krishna's glories. So when we get a disease, then we drink medicine through our mouth, and our disease will be cured. But the disease of the mind can be cured by drinking the medicine of Krishna's glories through our ear holes. So that's what the shloka says. So in this way, Krishna's glories are beautifully described by Sukadeva Goswami in Srimad Bhagavatam. And Narada Muni understood the glories of Krishna, how he is living with 16,108 queens simultaneously and satisfying all of them and doing his household duties in a very exemplary manner for the guidance of the entire human society. So that completes the 69th chapter. Now we will discuss the 70th chapter. So this describes Krishna's daily activities. So early in the morning, Krishna would get up from his sleep. So as soon as the rooster starts making sound early in the morning, indicating that it is Brahma Muhurta time, so Krishna would get up from his sleep. But his queens who are sleeping, they are not inclined to get up because they would be missing the association of Krishna. So they are so attached to Krishna, they would be missing Krishna. So they are not inclined to get up. But Krishna would just get up so early in the morning in Brahma Muhurta time, and then he starts meditating upon himself only. So everyone should meditate on Krishna, and Krishna is also meditating on Krishna. And later Krishna would take his bath with sanctified water, and then he would chant Gayatri mantra very silently, and then he would worship the Devatas, and he would worship the sun and the forefathers and the demigods and the Brahmanas, and he would give charity of cows to so many Brahmanas. So then he would offer obeisances to all these worshipable personalities like the cows and the Brahmanas and the Devatas, and then he distributes charity, then garlands and pan and sandalwood paste to Brahmanas. So in this way, Krishna would perform all his morning duties also in a very exemplary manner. Not only taking care of his household duties during the day, early in the morning he performs all the morning rituals and Gayatri mantra, and then all other morning duties also he performs very well. And now early in the morning, so when it is time for him to go to the Sudharma assembly hall to attend the day's meetings, so 16,108 Krishnas would come out of 16,108 palaces, and all the 16,108 Krishnas would merge into one Krishna, and Daruka would take that Krishna on his chariot to the Sudharma assembly hall, and Krishna would enter the Sudharma assembly hall to attend all the official meetings and then perform all other royal duties. So one day, so Krishna went to this Sudharma assembly hall, and he was sitting amongst the Yadus. All the chief members of the Yadu dynasty were surrounding Krishna and Balaram, and Krishna was looking like a moon in the midst of so many stars. So Krishna is the best of all Yadus. He is not like any other Yadu. He is the best of all Yadus. That's why he is called Yadupati. And so many entertainers and jesters and jokers and Sutamagadavandis. Sutamagadavandi are the names given to professional bards, are people who glorify Kshatriyas as their profession. So all these people were glorifying, and so many singers were playing musical instruments and then singing, and so many dancers were dancing. So in this way, the Sudharma assembly hall in Dwaraka is filled with a lot of opulence, and even the Brahmanas are also reciting mantras as Krishna is entering the Sudharma assembly hall. They are glorifying Krishna and his great activities. So when Krishna went and sat in the Sudharma assembly hall, the doorkeeper came to Krishna and said, "Krishna, we received a message and a messenger has actually come with that message. So should I bring him?" Then Krishna said, "Okay, bring him." Then the messenger came, and he is the messenger of some kings who were arrested by Jarasandha. So Jarasandha was the father-in-law. Jarasandha was the father-in-law of Kamsa, who was the maternal uncle of Krishna. So when Krishna killed Kamsa, Jarasandha wanted to kill Krishna, and then he attacked Mathura city 17 times, and he himself was defeated. Then when Jarasandha came to attack Krishna 18th time, then Krishna shifted all the Mathuravasis from Mathura to Dwaraka. He erected this Dwaraka city. So that Jarasandha, later we discussed all these things in our previous episodes. So that Jarasandha later he arrested 20,800 kings, just demanding them to submit to himself. So these 20,800 kings were devotees of Krishna also. So they identified a messenger and they had sent a message, heartfelt message, a prayerful message to Krishna. Now that messenger came to the Sudharma assembly hall and he started reading that message in front of Krishna. So he read the message of all the kings. The kings said that, "Oh Lord, we have taken your shelter, but now we are under the captivity of this demoniac person Jarasandha. We are in Magadha city and we are engaged in so many sinful activities. That's why we are encountering this problem." Actually, a devotee thinks that whatever difficulties or inconveniences or problems that the devotee is facing are only because of one's own misdeeds, one's own past misdeeds. So all these kings were offering obeisances to Krishna and they were condemning their own mentalities of being attached to material opulence. And they said that, "Oh Lord, you have descended to protect all saintly people, to punish all miscreants, and Jarasandha is a great miscreant. So please protect us, please deliver us from this problem, this predicament. And not only that you have to save us from this material problem, but you should also enable us to take shelter of your lotus feet with great sincerity and deliver us from this material world completely." Now many devotees, when they offer prayers to the Lord, in the midst of some difficulty, they are not only aspiring to come out of that problem with the help of the Lord, but they are aspiring to come out of this entire material world itself, which is filled with repeated birth and death, and then take shelter of the Lord in the spiritual world. So even Gajendra also, Gajendra was caught by a crocodile and Gajendra was praying to the Lord, "So please come and protect me from this crocodile." And towards the end of Gajendra's prayers, Gajendra also said that, "You should not only protect me from this crocodile, just protect me from this material world, which is material existence, which is filled with ignorance." So a devotee not only prays to the Lord to protect oneself from a immediate small circumstantial problem, and sometimes devotees don't even pray for that also. But ultimate prayer of a devotee is to be situated in the eternal position of being servants of the Lord in the spiritual realm if the Lord allows. So please deliver us from this material existence and material ignorance and material bondage and material attachment. That's the ultimate prayer of a devotee. So all these kings who were captivated by Jarasandha, they were praying to the Lord, "Please release us from the shackles of karma." So he locked us up in this house. So later also they will pray. When Krishna goes to kill Jarasandha, then also they will pray, somewhat similar. So then, as the messenger of these 20,800 kings was reading their message in front of Krishna in the Sudharma assembly hall, Narada Muni came there again. So Narada Muni came to Sudharma assembly hall and the Yadus got up, and then Krishna welcomed Narada Muni with great love and affection and respect and offered him a seat and asked, "Oh Narada Muni, you travel all over the world. You travel in all the three worlds. You travel all over the universe. So you must have gone to the Pandavas also. Can you please tell us about the welfare of Pandavas? So how are you doing? How are they doing?" So like that Krishna asked some questions to Narada Muni, and Narada Muni said that, "My dear Krishna," Narada Muni first glorified Krishna in various ways. "You are the Supreme Lord, you are the Creator, you are the shelter of all surrendered souls." And in this way Narada Muni glorified Krishna in various ways and said that, "My dear Krishna, Pandavas are your surrendered devotees. And now Yudhishthir Maharaj, the eldest of all the Pandavas, who is the king of Indraprastha now, so he wants to worship you in the Rajasuya sacrifice. So now Now it is your responsibility to reciprocate with the devotion and love of the Pandavas and go to Indraprastha and assist your cousin Yudhishthir in performing the Rajasuya sacrifice. So please help him. So in this way Narada Muni requested Krishna to go to Indraprastha on behalf of the Pandavas. So Pandavas are the dearest devotees of Krishna. Now Narada Muni presented this request in front of all the Yadus. So Yadus have two requests now. One, Krishna has to go to the Pandavas, and also Krishna has to deliver these 20,800 kings captivated by Jarasandha. So which request should be accepted first? So now the Yadus were preferring to kill Jarasandha first and release these 20,800 kings. So the Yadus were very eager to fight with Jarasandha. And although Krishna knows what to do, still Krishna called Uddhava. So for consultation. So let Uddhava decide what am I supposed to do now. Now in front of me there are two requests. One from the kings captivated by Jarasandha, second from the Pandavas that came through this Narada Muni. So what am I supposed to do? Let Uddhava decide. Then Uddhava came there. When Uddhava came there, Krishna asked him, what am I supposed to do? And Uddhava is a very intelligent person. He is the disciple of Brahaspati. So this Uddhava told, my dear Krishna, you are supposed to address both. Pandavas are your devotees, and these 20,000 kings captivated by Jarasandha, they are also your devotees. So you have to protect them and you have to attend the Rajasuya sacrifice of Yudhishthira Maharaj also. But I will tell you the sequence of events. So how, in what order are you supposed to do this? So please first go to Indraprastha. Because Yudhishthira Maharaj is performing this Rajasuya sacrifice, it is necessary for Yudhishthira Maharaj to conquer all the kings also. One of them should be Jarasandha also. So you go to Indraprastha and inspire Yudhishthira Maharaj to send his brothers to conquer different directions and kings, and then you take Bhima and go to Jarasandha, and Jarasandha is very devoted to Brahmanical culture. So Bhima should disguise himself as a Brahmana and then beg for a fight, and then Bhima can kill Jarasandha, and then Rajasuya sacrifice can be conducted by Yudhishthira Maharaj. So in this way Jarasandha would be conquered by Bhima, because Bhima is a very powerful warrior who is equal in strength with Jarasandha. So they both can fight. So in this way Uddhava gave his advice, and all the Yadus became so happy with this advice of Uddhava, and then Krishna made his preparations to go to Indraprastha along with his family, along with his queens. So Krishna and his queens started for Indraprastha. It was a very beautiful journey. So the Lord begged permission from his superiors, from the elders in the Yadu dynasty, to go to Indraprastha, and then the Lord, his wives and his children started for Indraprastha. He travelled in with great pomp, and all the queens were sitting on their palanquins. They were being carried by very powerful people, and the Lord's army with a flag post and jewelry and all the companions of the Lord. So when the Lord is going to Indraprastha, he was accompanied by so many people. So he was looking very resplendent. So then this messenger who came with the message from 20,800 kings, so he departed from Dwaraka to give the message to the kings. Then eventually Krishna and his queens came to Indraprastha. And at Indraprastha, Yudhishthira Maharaj received Krishna with so much of love and affection. Krishna is their cousin. So Yudhishthira Maharaj received Krishna and all his queens with great affection. Draupadi especially, she became so happy to see all the queens of Krishna. So she arranged for the residence, accommodation of all these queens, and then she took care of them. And Yudhishthira Maharaj had almost tears. He embraced Krishna, and he was so overwhelmed with love and affection for Krishna. And Indraprastha was also decorated with all kinds of festivities, and men and young girls were beautifully decorated. And seeing that Krishna is entering Indraprastha, all the citizens of Indraprastha came there to see Krishna, to take darshan of Krishna, and especially the young girls were attracted to Krishna, and every home was displaying so much of opulence. These homes were decorated with glowing lamps and respectful offerings, and in this way Krishna entered Indraprastha along with his queens, and Kunti Devi also received Krishna very affectionately. So Krishna comfortably stayed in Indraprastha for a while. And one day, we are entering the 72nd chapter now. So one day, Yudhishthira Maharaj spoke to Krishna. My dear Krishna, so I am planning to perform a Rajasuya sacrifice to worship you. So Rajasuya sacrifice is like the king of all Vedic ceremonies. So please give me your advice and blessings and make this whole endeavor successful. So we have no one other than you. We are completely dependent on you. He says that Tvat Paduke Aviratam Pari Ye Charanti means persons who serve and meditate and glorify. Even your footwear, even your shoes also can be freed from samsara. And their desires in this world can also get fulfilled. So worshipping the lotus feet of Krishna is such a great spiritual activity that delivers one from this samsara completely. So all the Pandavas worshipped Krishna, and not only they are worshippers of Krishna, they are dearest friends of Krishna. In the first canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, there is a beautiful shloka that describes the beautiful relation between Krishna and the Pandavas. Sarathya parishad sevana sakhya dautya virasana nugamanastavana pranaman snigdheshu pandushu jagat pranatim cha vishnor bhaktim karoti nrpatischarana ravinde. Sarathya, Krishna became a Sarathi, means a chariot driver. Parishada, Krishna became like a president of the assembly in the Rajasuya sacrifice that will be coming soon. Sevana, Krishna became like a servant of the Pandavas. Sakhya, friend. Dautya, messenger. Virasana, a night watchman. Anugamana, following the Pandavas. Stavana, praising the Pandavas. Pranaman, offering obeisances to Bhima and Yudhishthir, who were his elder cousins. So why Krishna is doing all these menial services to the Pandavas? Snigdheshu pandushu jagat pranatim cha vishnor. Although Krishna is that same Vishnu, in front of whom entire universe bows down, still snigdheshu pandushu, because the Pandavas are malleable by the will of the Lord, Krishna is rendering so many services to the Pandavas. Now Krishna has become an advisor to Yudhishthira Maharaj in conducting this Rajasuya sacrifice. And Yudhishthira Maharaj sought the guidance of Krishna. Krishna said, my dear Yudhishthira, it's a wonderful decision. You have to perform Rajasuya sacrifice. And this sacrifice is desirable for everyone. Even great demigods and the pitas and sages, they also will attend this sacrifice. So your brothers are actually partial expansions of great devatas. So you are also self-controlled. You have conquered me with your love and devotion and affection. So now you should conquer some kings. You should gain more and more wealth and influence to conduct this sacrifice. So then Yudhishthira became very joyful, and he had sent his 4 brothers Bhima, Arjuna, Nakula, Sahadev in 4 different directions to conquer kings in those directions. So Sahadev went to the south. He conquered the people in the south, and Nakula went to west, Arjuna went to the north, and Bhima went to the east. After defeating so many kings in these different directions, Bhima, Arjuna, Nakula, Sahadev, they brought a lot of wealth to Yudhishthira Maharaj. So that Yudhishthira Maharaj's treasure house is filled with wealth to conduct the sacrifice, and also his influence also increased in this earthly planet. And later, one more king has to be conquered, that is Jarasandha. So Krishna told Yudhishthira Maharaj that he would be going to Jarasandha along with Bhima and Arjuna, and Bhima could kill Jarasandha. So Bhima, Arjuna and Krishna went to Jarasandha in the disguise of Brahmanas and asked for charity. And Jarasandha, although he is a very demoniac person, still he respects Brahmanical culture and he is very charitable to the Brahmanas. And when Krishna, Bhima and Arjuna went to Jarasandha in the form of Brahmanas to beg some charity, Jarasandha promised, I will give whatever you want. And Jarasandha also noticed that these people, they don't seem to be Brahmanas, because a Kshatriya holds his bow and there are marks of bow strings on his shoulder. So Jarasandha noticed them. So these people seem to be warriors. They don't seem to be Brahmanas. But still, they came in the form of Brahmanas and I have promised them that I will give charity. Whatever they want, I have to give. Then Krishna and Bhima and Jarasandha and Arjuna revealed themselves, revealed their real identities to this Jarasandha. So Krishna said, here is Bhima, the son of Pandu Maharaj, and here is that glorious Arjuna, and I am Krishna, your enemy. And the desire that we have is, we want a duel fight. So you can fight with us. So then Jarasandha saw these three personalities and said, Krishna, I will not fight with you. You are a coward. When I came to attack your Mathura city, you ran away like a coward. So I will not fight with you. And Arjuna doesn't seem to be strong enough to fight with me. He is not equal in strength with me. But Bhima is as strong as me. I will fight with Bhima. So Jarasandha chose Bhima, and Bhima and Jarasandha started fighting with each other. For several days the fight went. So Jarasandha was unconquerable and Bhima was also unconquerable. Both are like equal in their strength. So nobody was winning or losing. So then Krishna gave an idea to Bhima. So he indicated, he just took a twig of a tree and then bifurcated that twig into two, and then Bhima got an idea. So Bhima just pressed one leg of Jarasandha and then caught the other leg with his hands and then just bifurcated the body of Jarasandha into two parts and then threw them aside. So in this way Jarasandha he was divided into two. Actually Jarasandha was born in two halves and a demoness named Jara joined him into Jarasandha. Now Bhima has separated these two parts of Jarasandha's body and Jarasandha died. So then Bhima became victorious and Krishna, Bhima and Arjuna came back to Indraprastha and informed of everything that has happened in Jarasandha's kingdom. And Yudhishthir became so happy with the victory of Bhima, and ultimately all this victory was because of the blessings and the mercy and the support of the Supreme Lord Krishna. It is Krishna who indicated to Bhima how to kill Jarasandha, and Yudhishthir became so grateful and so happy that Jarasandha was also killed. He is a demoniac king, and then he made his preparations for the Rajasuya sacrifice. So then before that, after killing Jarasandha, Krishna went inside Jarasandha's kingdom and he saw these 20,800 kings who were held captive in Jarasandha's kingdom. And all these 20,800 kings, they saw Krishna. They were so happy to see Krishna. So finally Krishna has answered our prayer. He released all of us and they immediately offered prayers to Krishna, saying that, "Oh Lord, you have shown us great mercy. You have released us from this prison. And also we are captivated in this prison because we were fighting with each other to win some authority over other kingdoms, because it's the nature of Kshatriyas to fight with other Kshatriyas to expand their kingdom and to take away the other people's kingdom also." So now Yudhishthira Maharaj is also doing the same, but he's doing it under the guidance of Krishna to establish dharma, and he's an instrument in Krishna's hands. And Krishna, the Supreme Lord, wants such righteous kings like Yudhishthira Maharaj to rule this planet, not demoniac people like Jarasandha or Duryodhan and other people. But in general, Kshatriyas, they fight with each other. So these Kshatriyas, all these kings, they started saying that Krishna, we were trying to dominate each other, we were trying to capture others' kingdom. So we were greedy. So you have delivered us. So please, you have delivered us from this Jarasandha's arrest. So you should also deliver us from this entire material existence. So please be merciful upon us. Let us never be greedy again. Let us never be attached on a material plane. So please destroy our material attachments, my dear Lord. So in this way, all the kings offered prayers to Krishna, and Krishna just arranged nice food and garments for them. They were held captive for such a long time. So Krishna tried to just revive them from their situation, and then he had sent them back to their kingdoms. And then Krishna, Bhima and Arjuna went to Indraprastha and then met Yudhishthira Maharaj, and Yudhishthira Maharaj became very happy, and he began preparations for his Rajasuya sacrifice, having conquered many other kings. So in the Rajasuya sacrifice, so many kings came. Then so many kings and sages and brahmanas and even devatas also came there. So Yudhishthira Maharaj was so happy and enthusiastic in conducting this Rajasuya sacrifice, and in that Rajasuya sacrifice, Yudhishthira had to offer the first worship to some exalted personality. This is called Agra Puja, the first honor. So all the priests performed the sacrifice according to Vedic injunctions, and when the time for selecting the personality to offer first honor has come, then everybody unanimously felt that Krishna should be worshipped. So then Sahadev established Krishna's supremacy. So Krishna is the supreme personality of Godhead. Entire universe is dependent on him. He is the foundation of the entire universe, and he is the teacher of all systems of spiritual philosophy, and he is the creator, maintainer and destroyer. So he deserves the first honor. Sahadeva established the glory of Krishna, and all the other personalities like Bhishma, then so many other personalities were there. Universal celebrities assembled there. So everyone unanimously agreed that Krishna has to be worshipped in this Rajasuya sacrifice. Then Yudhishthira Maharaj commenced his Agra Puja or worship of Krishna. So Yudhishthira Maharaj sprinkled water on his hands, and then when Krishna was thus honored, nearly everybody who was present in that sacrificial arena, so they spontaneously folded their hands and offered respects to Krishna in a very reverential mood. So, but one person started speaking out against this whole endeavor to worship Krishna. How can Krishna receive worship? So this person, who is called Shishupala, he went against Yudhishthira Maharaj's decision. He went against the decision of all the great personalities in that whole assembly. So he started criticizing Krishna, blaspheming Krishna, because Rukmini was promised by Rukmi to Shishupala. So Shishupal was about to marry Rukmini, but Krishna came and kidnapped Rukmini. And Shishupala was already naturally envious of Krishna since his childhood. Now after Rukmini was kidnapped, Shishupala became even more angry with Krishna. And upon the invitation of Yudhishthira Maharaj, Shishupala also has come, Duryodhana also has come, Karna also has come. So many people from different parts of the world came to Rajasuya sacrifice. Now Shishupal could not tolerate the honor that Krishna is receiving in Yudhishthira's sacrifice. So he started speaking against Krishna. He said, this Krishna is a disgrace to his whole family. And these Yadus were cursed by their ancestor, Yayati cursed. And also these people have left the holy land of Mathura, and they ran and erected a city, a fort in the middle of the ocean. So these people are degraded, these Yadus are degraded in various ways, and Krishna is especially degraded in this Yadu dynasty. How can he worship? How can he receive the first honor? So in this way, Shishupal blasphemed Krishna in various ways, and he has kidnapped Rukmini Devi from this Kundinapur. I was about to marry her. So in this way, when Shishupal was criticizing, so many people they were very much concerned that Krishna is being offended, because nobody should tolerate the offense or blasphemy towards the Supreme Lord or his devotees. So one should either block one's ears, or one should just run away from that place, or if one has the capacity, one should punish or even kill that offender, depending on the extent of the offense. So none of the assembly members approved Shishupal's misbehavior in the sacrificial arena. He is just contaminating the whole sacrificial arena with his contaminated consciousness and his envy and anger and critical attitude towards Krishna. So he was so intolerant to see Krishna being honored in this way. So then Pandavas also became angry at Shishupal, and some people were trying to come towards Shishupal and teach him a lesson. So Krishna stopped them, and Krishna released his Sudarshana Chakra to kill Shishupal, and Shishupal's head was cut by the Sudarshana Chakra. So then Shishupal was liberated. We also discussed this episode briefly in the 7th canto, 1st chapter. So after Shishupal was liberated, then other kings became pacified, and Yudhishthira Maharaj continued his sacrifice. So then Yudhishthira Maharaj successfully completed the sacrifice of Rajasuya, and during this sacrifice Bhima supervised the kitchen, and Duryodhan was looking after the treasury. He was burning with envy inside. Although Shishupal started speaking out about his envy towards Krishna, Duryodhan could not express that envy towards Yudhishthira Maharaj, but Duryodhan was not very happy to see this whole opulence and grandeur and fame and influence of Yudhishthira Maharaj. And Sahadev respectfully received guests, and Nakula procured needed items in this Rajasuya sacrifice, and Arjuna attended to elders, and Krishna started washing feet of the guests in Rajasuya sacrifice, and Draupadi served them food, and Karna was giving gifts to different people. So in this way Rajasuya sacrifice was conducted with the assistance of so many people, and people went to the river to perform this avabhrata or bathing ceremony, and then there were all the royal assembly members, royal family members were enjoying by throwing water at each other in this way, and that completed this Rajasuya sacrifice, and Yudhishthira Maharaj's glories were established in this world so nicely with the help of Krishna. But one unpleasant incident has happened from Duryodhan's perspective. So Duryodhan once he entered this great assembly hall of Yudhishthira Maharaj, and Duryodhan was confused that he saw land and he thought that it is water, and he lifted his garments up so that his dress does not become wet. And then later he went little ahead and he found water and he thought it is land, and he entered the ditch, and then he fell there. So then everybody started laughing, especially Bhima laughed, and even the ladies also started laughing. And Yudhishthira Maharaj said, he was trying to sober them, hey, you should not laugh at Duryodhan like that. But Krishna encouraged them to laugh. So in this way Duryodhan was humiliated, and he is burning with envy internally, but now he was insulted also in this way. So he was so embarrassed and humiliated. So Duryodhan's envy and anger and intolerance increased, and then he went back. So these are few events that happened during the Rajasuya sacrifice of Yudhishthira Maharaj, where Krishna is worshipped and honored so wonderfully. So that completes the Rajasuya sacrifice episode, and after this Krishna returned to his abode Dwaraka. So today we have seen how Narada Muni saw the opulence of Krishna and his household life with so many queens, and also we have seen Yudhishthira Maharaj's Rajasuya sacrifice, and as a part of this we have seen the death of Jarasandha and Shishupal. Krishna killed two demons, Jarasandha and Shishupal. Of course, Krishna killed Jarasandha through Bhima. So tomorrow we will discuss the remaining chapters of the 10th canto. So thank you all very much. Granthara Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai.